Alrighty, welcome back to Shut Up and Ball. We're back for the divisional reactions. I am Aaron. I'm accompanied by Mr. John Harris, and yeah, what a weekend! As in case you didn't know, Wild, probably one of the better, if not the best, playoff weekends you ever had. So we're gonna dive right into the games. Whoops, had to cut that part out. Anyways, so now we're diving into the games here. Just a preface, we talked about the Bengals Titans game with some of John's friends, the Average Joe's podcast. So that's a separate episode. We're doing that, and with the Chiefs picks there, because obviously they won. They played Chiefs, so that analysis will be separate podcast, probably separate videos. So now, because of that, we're going to the other game Saturday. We're just diving right into it. Diving into my Green Bay Packers. They lost to the San Francisco 49ers 13-10. You really want me to go first? I mean, I don't mind.
I can go first if you want,
Yeah,
but I'm going to keep
go
mine
first
pretty short and
because
sweet.
I just don't want to lose my train of thought in case I want to maybe hit a rebuttal of yours or something. So you can go first. So
All right.
John, yeah, what were your thoughts on the game?
As a Cowboys fan, I've been there, lost last week, so I know how it feels to lose to the Niners. It's definitely frustrating because you think with a massive quarterback advantage, you should definitely put up more points, and at least you guys, have the weather excuse. We didn't. But anyway, for this game, I mean, this is incredibly obvious, and I'm sure you're going to talk about this too, but the special teams let y'all down. But that's football. I think I saw somewhere, I was listening to another podcast. They were talking about special teams throughout the years. And specifically this year, the Packers were graded as a whole special teams unit, kickoffs, field goals, punts, everything, as the worst special teams unit in the entire league. And so how fitting that, if you don't play well in all three phases, one of them is going to come back to bite you. And in this game, it was special teams. Also offensively, I mean, Packers only put up 10 points. I'm sure you're going to dive into, all the reasons behind that. And so weren't able to put up a ton of points, and your special teams really let you down. And so, what do you expect? That's football. Like we've talked about it all the time. Three phases. A lot of people forget about special teams. You can't, because it's something that's going to come back to bite you in the playoffs. I thought y'all's defense played fantastically. Obviously, with the weather, you think that it's a run kind of atmosphere, and the 49ers are one of the most run heavy teams in the league. And we talked about how that's a team that y'all don't want to play. I thought y'all did a really good job at stopping the run. But ultimately, the Niners, I think they were just, which, we're walking on eggshells here because, I've already talked with our other Packers fan, Matthew Parent, about, what happened in this game. But I honestly, I felt like the 49ers moved the ball better than the Packers overall in the game. Outside of the Jimmy Garoppolo, interception, I think he only had one turnover in that game. He might have had multiple. They were driving, and even on that drive, they got into the red zone and they could have scored. And so I felt like the 49ers just overall, Kyle Shanahan did what he does, and that's he coached a well-coached game. He got his team into positions. Jimmy G unfortunately cost him one of those drives, but their special teams, they bounced back for him. So, unfortunately, like I said with the Cowboys, I think the better team won, and I say the better team, like overall unit. If this is Aaron Rodgers' last game in Green Bay, it is a shame. And I threw this out there in our group chat, but it's sort of a after the fact point that we knew it going into the season, but I do put part of the blame on the GM, Brian Gutekunst, because you look at the targets this game, and I think it was very clear that Aaron Rodgers in a big moment in big games was going to trust his key playmakers, and that was Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. And you can't blame the guy because those two players are absurd. But there wasn't really anybody else that was able to get consistently involved. And I haven't sat there and watched game film. I know that a lot of people have been pointing to the very last play that the Packers had on offense where Allen Lazard was able to get open for 30 yards or something. But Rodgers ended up taking the deep shot to Devontae Adams. That's one play. But you got to think back to that Jordan Love pick. And I know that we've harped on it in the past. We've harped on it a lot, but imagine if Rodgers gets another playmaker there. He gets another top receiver. He gets another option. And you just have more weapons for this team. Maybe they could put up more on offense. And also, I think maybe some blame's got to go to Matt LaFleur. This is 3 years in a row the Packers have not been able to reach to the Super Bowl, and I think Matt LaFleur is a great coach, but putting up 10 points, you're an offensive-minded coach. Blame's got to go around equally to everybody, and so Matt LaFleur deserves some of it too. But overall, like I said, I think it was a really bad game for the Packers as an overall team. Even though the defense stepped up, it was a pretty bad game overall as a team. And the Niners, they just came out and they executed.
All right. So obviously we had the like first drive was as good as you great as you wanted first drive. Moved the ball up 7-0. But from there on out, or not there on out, I'm jumping ahead. And then we get the stop. And really underrated, but and then obviously multiple plays, but this was probably, in my opinion, one of the, if not the biggest, one of the biggest plays that no one's really talking about. The Fred Warner punching the ball out on Mercedes Lewis. I'm not going to sit here and
Yeah.
say, "Oh, Mercedes returned." It was just a good play by Fred Warner, and from there on out, it killed our offensive momentum. And because we were right on the door for field goal range at least, but we were moving the ball very well. AJ Dillon was still part of the offense because he hadn't gotten hurt yet, and he was still being solid as well. But from there on out, it was tough sledding, and yeah, I do. I am. This is one of the few games where I can say it wasn't really the defense's fault. In previous playoff games, I mean, we all, especially Packer fans, but people probably remember. I mean, Colin Kaepernick ran all over us basically twice. One of those times we had a pick that could end the game, didn't happen. Arizona multiple times, the 2 times we played them, couldn't stop them when we needed to. Atlanta with Kyle Shanahan, that was a whole debacle because of the defense. But like you mentioned, special teams has been an issue for multiple years. It's not just this year. You go and think back to Seattle
Just
when we
real quick, last year, like I said, this year y'all were the 32nd special teams unit. Last year, I think y'all were the 26th graded unit.
yeah.
So, yeah,
And yeah, especially this, like going into the game, I was more worried special teams wise about Mason Crosby missing a big kick, which I mean he didn't really, but he got blocked. But yeah, special teams, like it's part one of the 3 phases, and it hasn't been very good. It was last time I remember our special teams, I had confidence even in our kick returners or anything was 2012, the year after we won the Super Bowl. Had Randall Cobb, and that was really it. After that, I think I don't know the numbers. I'm just saying our special teams hasn't been amazing, and it's one of those things that we mentioned, or folks, coaches, or people just mention all the time in teams. Like if you're not getting better, you're getting worse, and it didn't get better this year. And but before I get, obviously they blocked the field goal there. Great play by Jimmy Ward and them. And once again, why do we have Tyler Lancaster? If you don't know who he is, he's a defensive tackle. Go look at the play. He was screwed. There's 2 guys. He had to block 2 guys, 2 defensive backs basically, and he's a defensive tackle. Like not even really a starting defensive tackle either. He's not a dancing bear. So I don't know the thought process there, but and you and I talk about the play beforehand too. I mean, as good as Aaron Jones is, there's a reason that I texted. I said he's diet Jamal Charles, and first of all, caught the pass and amazing effort by Jaquaski Tart, by the way, because came from the other side of the field to make the
Yeah.
play. But why didn't Aaron? You can go if you go back and watch replay, you can tell Aaron Jones wasn't really turning on the Jets. He was going like 89. Like his mindset was I have to make a miss instead of I'm Aaron Jones. Let me try to outrun him, and also
Right.
because he tried to make a miss and we had to go down. I think we had to spike it too. Didn't have any timeouts. Like every other person, you play the sideline and you just try to, it's just a foot race down the sideline. And then most of the time they're going to have to push you out because that's just the easiest thing as opposed to a wrap up tackle. But then guess what? Maybe we have 13 seconds on the clock or something. I don't mean to bring up 13 seconds, but maybe enough time, run one more play, get a little bit closer, or you just outrun him and get a touchdown. But that's where, things like that was why Aaron Jones, and maybe he didn't feel confident in his speed because, once again, coming off that MCL, maybe he doesn't have the same burst. Regardless, that's why I remember our running back list, some people wanted to throw Aaron Jones in there. That's why Aaron Jones was in it. It's still not going to be in there. He's not. If it's Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, most of the other elite backs, they're housing that. That's a touchdown. And then it just sucked because then the field goal block happened. So, man, you didn't even get 7. Now you're like, okay, maybe we get 3. We go up, we get 10 points at halftime. No, that didn't happen. And because of that, San Francisco could still run their offense. They still had, our defense did a great job, but like you and I mentioned a million times before, I don't care if you have the 85 Bears. If your offense isn't sustaining drives, like at some point, the off, especially in today's league with the rules, granted, officiating didn't come into play this game, thankfully. Um, it's hard to play that good defense that long. And the Niners,
Yeah.
especially with how talented they are in all phases. I know Jimmy G, everyone wants to crap on him, and yes, like he's just an average quarterback at best, and definitely one of the worst at the the worst quarterback probably of the group, even in last round. Still a serviceable quarterback, and Kyle Shanahan found ways to move the ball.
And he's played in big games.
Well, yeah, and then part of the Packers too. If you go back and look at even our close games, it's just especially against good teams. It's just managing the game. We don't do turnovers on offense. We beat them by just enough. There's not that, and maybe some of this goes on Aaron Rodgers, but maybe I think this goes on the coach staff organizations. It's not that killer psycho mentality that we need to just curb stomp them. We need to put this game away. We never really did that. Granted, I know, and you brought this up. We're missing Marquez Valdes-Scantling. No one else really scared the Niners besides Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. But in critical moments, they doubled Devontae, like you saw in that last play. It was they've been doing that all the game, that type of stuff, where they had a safety in the box, and as soon as Rodgers snapped the ball, the safety just bolted out. They're showing, oh, it's a cover 3, cover 1. We got one safety back. No, we don't. Ball snap. Guys running back immediately. That is so that play. Obviously, Rodgers is to be criticized. That's one of his maybe his only mistake of the game. The other criticism I do have of Rodgers, which maybe once again this may go to coaching staff, is like he loves the false, the snap count, to do all that. He literally loves to sit there, dwindle the play clock down a lot. And granted, we were winning, so I'm not trying to discredit this, but some of the other teams, especially the Bucks and some other teams, they do this. The Bucks did in the Super Bowl last year. It's a defense that loves to disguise. A very good strategy. It's just you get up, quick snap. You say ready, green, and you hut. It's like it. So before they can get settled, before their guy can kind of see what we're doing, you kind of catch them off guard and then maybe that guy's not ready just to bolt back, and he's stumbling a little bit, and you get your big play. But nonetheless, lack of weapons. We've mentioned before, Matt LaFleur, he's just a solid offensive coordinator, but we saw in this game too, just kind of ran out of tricks, and just the bread and butter plays weren't really working because you don't have as great of a talent to, I think we can all argue Niners O-line is better than Packers O-line right now, but
right.
Yeah, and then obviously the block punt, that's part of special teams, and then from there on out, and then all of a sudden now you're like, oh crap, now we're in win now mode or go win the game mode, as opposed to we've kind of been in, they haven't been doing much on offense, let's just kind of be conservative. And then it's hard to switch that on and off. Obviously, Rodgers didn't make that play. And then we had a chance to get stopped, but Niners, it's tough to be a physical team all of a sudden as opposed to it being your identity. And the Niners obviously are the more physical, better team. Yes, we matched their physicality in the first half, but that's just not who we are. And like as you rewatch the game, as the game went on, they started breaking more tackles, a few more holes started opening up, and then Devo got that key first down to put him in field goal range, and that was it. So, I guess as a Packer fan, obviously I put a little blame on Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers does deserve the blame, but I don't think, like most national media, is putting all the blame on him. All the blame doesn't go on him. Just like even if he had won that game, all the credit would not go to Aaron Rodgers. Defense. If anything, the winner, I would say, would be the defense. They did their job for the most part. I mean, they only really allowed 6 points, but it's all 3 phases, and they also had some good kick returns too. So we'll see what happens with the future. Believe we're probably going to be over the cap, so who knows if we'll be able to bring back Devontae Adams as well as Aaron Rodgers if he wants to come back. He might have to exchange up his contract. And even then, we'll see. And we're not a big trade team, so it's not like in theory, maybe we trade one of the Smith brothers because they're on big contracts. And Rashawn Gary, who, by the way, poor guy, he had a great game that game too.
He had a great season.
I've loved what we've seen from him, but guess what? His extension's gonna be coming up soon. This is his 3rd year, so he's gonna need money soon. And I know we harped on the Jordan Love pick. I don't mean to harp on it again, but you would have loved to have a T. Higgins or maybe even another defensive lineman, maybe to help stop just for depth, or maybe someone else. Yeah. So I'm not entirely shocked about the results. I have, for people watching on YouTube, and I'll show you this GIF later. I'm sure you've seen it. It's the guy in the bar where he's sitting there smiling. I think it's Chris Farley, and then like his face just goes. I wish I
Yep,
could share the screen, but that
I've
was
seen it.
Packer fans, and really a lot of fans this weekend. But that was me, just me in my head the whole game. Just this. If you're watching on YouTube, there it is. Probably cut this and put it on Instagram, or whatever. But yeah, that's it. And I've just been down this road many times before. So at this point, it's yes, I'm disappointed and I'm upset, but like it's only like I said with the guys with the average Joe's guys, like I, I I've I've been through this so many times before at this point. Like it just sucks. So great win by the Niners. Once again, shows you build a good team, have a solid quarterback. You can make waves. Obviously, it helps to have the Mahomes, Allens, Burrows, and Stafford's, Brady's. They cover up a lot. But when you have a very good support system around them, and once again, also I want to give credit to the Niners defense too, because people think they're like chop liver. Yes, their secondary isn't great, but or at least their corners. I mean, Jaquaski Tart, solid safety. Jimmy Ward, I mean, he showed he made plays this game too. We know the linebackers are good. You know, the front four is good. And credit the coaching staff too, because like I said, just made adjustments. Double Devontae. They didn't do that the first meeting. They definitely did so this time, and they obviously won. So credit the Niners there for that one. That ramble is over. Was there anything else you wanted to add or bring up?
Um, and once again, I really don't want to harp on the Jordan Love or some of the other draft picks, but I remember like some of the other plays that like y'all's, your weapons made, right? Like Mercedes Lewis with that fumble. DeGuara, his one target, I think was like
It was,
15, 20 yards downfield and he
as a
dropped
drop.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you think like, man, if like you said, a T Higgins is available, just the weapon that he is, over the middle. And, like we talked about, with the average Joe's guys, you can't go out and double those two receivers, him and Jamar Chase, because the other one's going to kill you. And so having that other option that's not a running back, because as good as, Aaron Jones is, and he had a great game in the receiving work, like he's not a receiver. So you're not going to go throw him on the outside. You're limited in what you with him, when it comes to the air attack. And so having that second option, because Marquez Valdez-Scantling, like you said, he wasn't in this game. He wasn't playing. And so maybe if he is, he's a difference maker. But even him, we've seen in the past, has had some bonehead moments that if you had another solid, number two option, then maybe that makes all the difference. But it, it sort of feels like maybe the GM and the front office felt like, well, we're going to put all our money and all our draft picks elsewhere because we believe that Aaron Rodgers is so good that he can figure it out. And that's fine. But, with other teams we've seen in the modern day NFL, that's just not how it works. Look at the
Well,
Chiefs and all the weapons they're getting,
and
the Bills, the Bucks. Like, you just got to get more. That's the NFL.
And even then, I just hate NFL's longer. We're not no longer in that mentality of let's draft a guy and take a few years to develop him. It's no longer the NFL anymore. I think also too what we've seen is there's a lot more better quarterbacks nowadays just coming
Yeah.
out because NFL has grown. I mean, in popularity, and there's just a lot more. A lot more people wanting to be quarterbacks as we've seen. Mahomes and Kyler Murray, they all both probably could have been baseball players. Same thing, Russell Wilson, but fell in love with football because of the popularity and all that, and they were pretty good at it too. So, yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of just better quarterback play in general nowadays. So a lot of these quarterbacks are coming out pretty much pro ready. Maybe there is the rare few that take a couple of years, like even Josh Allen took a year or two, but even then, like Bills had nothing to really for him to even showcase until the last few years with Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. So, anyways, yeah, so that was the Packer game, but
Real quick,
yeah.
did Elton Jenkins play in this
No,
game?
yeah,
I don't
that's
think.
another
Yeah,
thing
I
too.
think he's been
Jenkins
out
didn't
for a while.
play. Bakhtiari didn't play. We let
How was Josh Myers, the rookie center? Has he started this year? Has he been good?
he's been good. I wouldn't say he's been good like a good starter. He hasn't been Elton Jenkins or you know,
Corey Lindsley.
yeah. Obviously Corey Linsley's better. Corey Linsley's one of the better centers, but obviously, like I said, we're really strapped for cash, so that's why we let him
Yeah.
walk. But yeah,
But maybe once again that goes to the GM, you're
mm,
putting your money elsewhere.
I mean,
Anyway.
so anyways, we'll see what happens. There's a lot of unknowns about the Pack organization going forward. And I mean, we can sit here for hours talking about that, what the heck they could do, what Rodgers can do, all that, but we're not going to do that. So that was that. Niners win. They move on. Now we go to Sunday's games, which I don't know why I don't have that pulled up right now. I'm a dummy. Sorry, Sunday's games. First one was Rams Buccaneers. Rams beat the Bucks 30-27. Looked like it was getting real scary there for a second. So I'll let you go first. What were your thoughts in regards to this game and how it turned out?
The first chunk there's sort of like two sections of this game, right? There was the section in which the Rams dominated, and then there was the next section in which the Buccaneers started to make this comeback. And then the game ends with, obviously the Cooper Cup, big play. The first chunk is more so what I expected. So in one of my fantasy league group texts, after the Packers lost, somebody texted and they were like, "Man, Tom Brady's going to win his eighth ring. It's all lining up. He doesn't have to go to Lambeau now. He's going to face Jimmy G, all this kind of stuff." And I was like, "Hey, man, don't sleep on the Rams." I mean, both of us picked the Rams cover, but I believe they're going to win outright. And I said, "Don't sleep on the Rams because as great as Tom Brady and the Bucks are, they're dealing with a lot of injuries. Tristan Wirfs not playing this game. Obviously, Chris Godwin's not there. AB's not there. They've had injuries throughout their secondary for most of the year, and so guys are banged up. There's guys that are playing, but even then, like they're coming off injuries throughout the year, like I said. So you just got a lot of different pieces that are not as sound as they were last year for the Buccaneers. Because last year the Buccaneers were there was some stat that came out that they were like the healthiest team all
Yeah.
year when it came to key players not missing games, and then just overall like how many games were missed by anybody on their team. They were the healthiest team all year, and in the NFL, like that matters. If you're a playoff team and you have health and the other teams don't, I don't care how good the other team is. It's hard to overcome when you have key starters like a Bakhtiari or Elton Jenkins or Tristan Wirfs that are not playing.
Or even just key guys, like even the
Yeah, they don't have
secondary
to
guys.
be.
Like we mentioned Marcus Valdes-Scantling, a guy that can take the top off of defense. It
Yeah,
changes. Like, oh man, now we don't have to worry about the deep threat. Now we guard everything short to intermediate.
yeah.
So
And so the first part of the game is totally what I expected. I honestly thought the Rams were going to win this pretty easily. I did think the Buccaneers were going to be a little bit better in the early part, but I felt pretty comfortable with the Rams. Just they matched up so well. You have Mike Evans. Well, guess what? He's going to be guarded by Jalen Ramsey, and he actually had a really good game on the day. Even though for the most part Ramsey was guarding him, he had a great game. They did a good job of moving him into other spots. But then you got Tristan Wirfs out. Well, they have Von Miller on that side who's going to come and eat you alive. They got Aaron Donald, so you can't even necessarily divert attention to that side where Von Miller is. And so it just felt like the Rams matched up so well for what the Buccaneers wanted to do. And the Buccaneers also, the way to beat them, and we've known this for years, has been through the air. And the Rams, they're built to do that with OBJ, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, and Matthew Stafford. So that is when is expected for the most part. But then, man, when the Buccaneers started coming back, I texted it. I don't know if I texted it to you guys, but I was like, man, he can't keep getting away with this. Like Tom Brady can't have another comeback like this. We've had too many times where it's happened and everything starts going his way and the other team just crumbles. And I was just like Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, like they're gonna crumble. They're gonna do it. And luckily, they did not. I don't like Tom Brady. I'm not a hater, but I don't want to see him win another one. I'd love to see Matthew Stafford have a chance to win one. Um, and so I'm glad the Rams won. I thought they were the better team on the day, even though Cam Akers had a rough day and tried to fumble it away for him. Yeah, I thought the Rams were the better team, and credit to them for staying patient with the run. They ran it 30 times despite averaging 2.4 yards per carry. They did enough to get it done. So good for the Rams.
yeah. I want to start there with the whole comeback because it was annoying me. Like I could let's just preface. Like I didn't realize Tom Brady was playing defense here because another the reason why maybe we talk about talented teams and rosters. I mean this Bucks team, they're down 27-3, and then they force a fumble. I believe was that Cooper Kupp the first one I think, right? I'm forgetting, or maybe it's
I can
Cam Akers. But
check.
regardless,
It was
they
Cooper Cup.
they
Cam fumbled twice. Cooper
but yeah,
fumbled
but
once.
there's that first one, and then the Bucks
Yeah.
scored, made it 27 uh 13 at that point, and then they fumbled, and then there's when they exchanged fumbles back and forth, was when Cam fumbled again. But I mean, once credit the Bucks defense once again, just they have talent. It's a front seven's pretty good, and their linebackers are pretty damn good. And there's Antoine Winfield's a good safety. Um, so they're obviously the instrumental making this comeback because it's once again, if you get a turnover, oh man, all I have to go is go 30 or 20 yards and score. Like that's pretty easy. Or that's much easier than going, the full length of the field, obviously. So yeah, credit the Bucks there. Yeah, you mentioned the Rams' patience with the run. Love that, just because it forced them to do different things. And then we saw at the end there. I'm not sure how you feel about it, but I was okay. In theory, I was okay with the Bucks blitzing. Like it's your identity, sure, go ahead. But obviously, it didn't work out that way, and that's their motto: risk it for the biscuit. Well, you risked it, and you left Cooper Cup 1-on-1, wide open down the
Yeah.
middle of the field. So if you like I said, if that's your identity, that's your identity, and you have to be willing to live with those. I know Bruce Arians said, "Oh, like one guy blitzed that wasn't supposed to blitz." Well, it didn't really matter. Like I mean,
Yeah.
there was a free guy anyway, and Stafford had to throw it up. So, and we'll talk about the Bills. It's just once again, and we'll see it too. I know it's easy to micromanage after the fact, but some critical decisions and key moments, like what do we do in NFL teams? Like just the little details can hurt you. So, yeah, great win for the Rams, and yeah, obviously I'm very happy for Matthew Stafford. Also, because he played a clean game as well, a second straight game for the
Yeah.
most part, except for the fumbles. I mean, and once again, like I said, we saw okay, in certain situations, they had double Cooper Cup. Well, they have Odell Beckham Jr. Or Van Jefferson had a few moments too, and even just him on a jet sweep as well. So credit the Rams for filling out their roster, whether it's pushing all their chips in, unlike the Packers, a team that's more conservative, organization more conservative. Rams very aggressive. Let's go get Odell Beckham. I know Odell had his pick of the litter, but obviously I think Odell is probably a selling point. It's like this team,
Yeah.
they want to win. Like that's all they care about is win a Super Bowl this year. They don't think and then so credit the Rams there for that one. And yeah, it's a very interesting matchup we got next week with them and the Niners, which will make that pick in a minute. But now
Just real quick
yeah,
on the blitz thing. I like it in certain situations, but against the Rams, I don't like it at all. Matthew
yeah,
Stafford has the arm to throw it as far as he needs to let Odell or Cooper Cup try and just beat them in a dead sprint. And when the receivers have Cooper Cup, I mean, the monster year he's on, and he's already killing you on the day. I mean, he had over 100 before that throw even happened. And you got OBJ, who we know is a fantastic deep threat. He can make crazy plays. I mean, you have to think that like one of those guys is probably going to go deep. And so if you give him 1-on-1 and Stafford's under pressure, he'll just chuck it and make him have a play. And we did see that the Niners, they had sort of success doing a similar thing earlier in the year, not earlier in the year, like literally, a couple weeks ago, to where I can't remember the corner's name, but it was that interception, to basically end it when it was overtime. And so, there is reason to believe that it was happening, but Stafford was having a really good game. The thing with Stafford that I think we've seen on the year is that, like, if he has an interception at some point in the game, then he's probably potentially due for another one. He was having a really good day. And so I didn't love it in that specific scenario just because like they have some nasty playmakers.
you have a really good front four. Like you probably don't need
Yeah.
a blitz there. So, anyways, let's just go on to this other game. Bills Chiefs, wild game. I don't even know where to start here. I'll throw it. I mean, if you want, you can go first because I really just want to start like towards the end. Really, sort of like I feel like we have to start. But you can go ahead first. What are your thoughts in regards to, Mania dubbing, one of the best games ever? Definitely in that conversation. But yeah, so how do you feel about it?
A lot of people have started throwing out this comparison that Mahomes Allen is the next Brady Manning. And screw that comparison because the Brady Manning was a lot more of pocket passers and reading the defense and slow playing it. These guys are they're absurd, man. Like I think I said it in the locker room after the game, but it's going to be really hard. And you said this early in the year. It's going to be really hard to not put Josh Allen and Mahomes as like probably the top two quarterbacks going into next season. Like, man, I mean, Rodgers is in that conversation too. And so I don't know where I would put those three, but like, wow,
I
what a
mean,
game. Like that was such an exciting game. The amount of points that was scored in the last like 3 minutes was absurd. Like that was just I'm lost for words. Like I mean, I can't say it's the best game I've ever seen just because there's probably a lot of games that I'm forgetting. Um, but if I mean, it's up there like that when it comes to just the pure display of quarterback greatness. Those two, like, what a battle. I mean, because they did it with everything. Both of them had like I think 80 rushing yards, 70 rushing yards, somewhere around there. So they were doing it with their legs. Mahomes was doing it early. Allen was picking up crucial third downs on his legs, and they were just throwing dots, laser beam after laser beam, and it just looked so easy between the two. Now, say what you will about the Buffalo Bills defense late in that game. I'm not a fan of which I know I just said I don't want to blitz. I don't want to blitz what the Buccaneers did, but I really don't like how soft they were playing on some of these guys. I feel like with Travis Kelsey, they did this like that final play to get them into field goal range. They did this little like bracket thing where they had two guys, on the sides. But if you've scrolled through social media at all, you see that Kelsey has said, and he's told Mahomes that, hey, they did this to me, a couple plays earlier in the game. They lined up like they were going to do it again. Then we called the timeout, or they called the timeout. I'm not going to run the route. I'm just going to go straight between them. I just feel like with Kelsey, like with Tyreek, I get it. You want to give him space. With Kelsey, if you're going to double team him, like get physical at the line. Don't let that guy get like 10 yards of free space to make, his decision on where he wants to go. And Mahomes to just, throw it right into the breadbasket. Like he's not a speedster. Like he can, beat you at the line with his physicality, but we're playing the clock game here. Like you want to run off as much time as possible, make Mahomes think as long as possible. And that his first option is probably going to be Travis Kelsey because Kelsey is the guy from, like 2 to 15 yards. Like that is his domain. So I didn't love what they did at that spot. And then obviously the overtime rules. We made a post about it in the playoffs. The overtime coin flip, it determines the winner. In this game, especially, the offenses could not be stopped. And so everyone knew who won the coin toss was going to win the game. But even if we look historically, this has happened. I'm going to pull the post again so that I don't
I think it was
misquote
like
the stat.
nine. They're 9-1. Whoever wins the
Yeah,
coin.
so there's been 11 overtime playoff games. The team that won the coin toss has a record of 10-1
10
in
and
those
1. Sorry.
games. 90 win percentage if you win the coin toss. 7 of those 10 went down and scored a touchdown on the first drive. So like even if you say, well, you take out the ones who didn't even score a touchdown, like 7 of those 11 games ended because the team won the coin toss just went down and scored. And I even think back to like, the Tim Tebow Denver game against the Steelers, the Patriots against the Chiefs when, Mahomes was first, lighting up the league and
I mean,
Tom
there's
Brady and the Pats went to
the
the
one
Super
where
Bowl.
Rodgers threw the like 2 Hail Marys to Jeff Janis, and then they went
Yep.
overtime, and the Cardinals went and scored first drive. It's game over.
Yeah. And then, if you want to take out even just playoffs, the team who wins the coin toss in the regular season wins the overtime game. It was like 54% of the time. And so that's far more fair, but still it's over half the time that the team winning the coin toss is winning. And so they have an advantage there by far. I think that the rules should be changed. I don't love the college proposal because college
Yeah,
rules started at 25 and like Mahomes and Allen,
yeah.
they're going to
Like
throw a
it
touchdown the
eliminates the
first play.
defense. Like
Yeah. So
I think,
maybe you start from the 50. Maybe
or the
there's been some,
40, like the
yeah,
others, the bad 40 in theory.
there's been some different rules that have been thrown around. I don't know what the answer is. I've seen a lot of proposals, but I absolutely think the rules have to change. They should have been changed a long time ago because I mean, NFL, like, what are we doing? Like, we were just deprived of potentially one of the greatest overtimes that could have ever happened if those guys were allowed to just go back and forth and just keep scoring. Because although some of those college games get drawn out, like there was a Texas A&M game a few years ago that they won in like the 7th overtime, and it was just like it was crazy, and it's exciting, and everybody tunes in, and it just becomes a moment in sports history that obviously I don't want 7 overtimes, to happen in the NFL, but like give each team a fair chance. Let the teams respond and allow the offenses to both have a chance and allow both defenses to have a chance to make plays too. So it's a shame for Josh Allen, but I have to give the guy so much credit because he had a monster game and he was so incredibly humble after the game with his comments where he didn't blame the rules. He didn't ask for a change. He just simply said that if they had won the coin toss, he'd be celebrating on his end. And so he knows how it is.
Yeah. Unlike Josh Allen, I'm gonna blame the defense, like we mentioned. I mean,
Yeah.
and I forgot to mention this for a Packer game too, but in critical moments, like once again, and I'm not. This is a coach thing. Like, oh man, I drew the X. He's gonna guard Travis Kelsey. That X. Well, that X is, and then Packer game it happened. George Kittle. We're gonna put Preston Smith on George Kittle man to man on third down. Yeah, that was a first down. And then like, let's put Javondre Campbell. I know he's an All Pro, but let's be honest. Javondre Campbell's against George Kittle one on one. Guess what happened? George Kittle got a first down in this game. Both the game winning touchdown and that drive, like you mentioned, John. No press. Didn't press Kelsey, and you're gonna put a linebacker on him. Like critical moments. What do we say? You're gonna look for Mahomes. All right, Mahomes is gonna look for Kelsey and Tyreek, and yeah, and then but Tyreek touchdown. Man, like granted, I would have liked a little bit more of a shell coverage, but that was just Tyreek Hill. Once again, people heavily criticize me. Granted, I'm not, maybe he's not the best wide receiver, but I'm not sure if there's another receiver or player that can catch a 15-yard post and have people in front of defenders in front of him and outrun everybody.
Yeah.
And even the last part, I was like, oh man, like right before he hit the pylon, it looked like, okay, or the guy in touchdown, like about 10, 15 yards. I was like, okay, maybe I think it was like Micah Hyde. Like, oh, I think Micah might have an angle. Nope. He even threw up the peace sign, like even as he was doing that.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I love what that PFF mentioned. Be consistent about taunting, NFL.
Yeah. Where was the taunting?
You were so adamant about taunting, but then you don't throw it there. I mean, granted, so
Even my mom noticed it. My mom was like, "Don't they usually like throw flags for that?"
they
I was
thrown
like,
it
"Yeah, they
against
usually
Tyreek
do."
multiple times in the beginning of the
I
season, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, no, never mind here.
I told her I was like, he had to get gloves that had like the piece
Yeah,
outline
because
because he was
everything else
getting
is like,
fined and flagged
yeah,
for
like
doing that.
this finger's like red, red. These two are like black, like yeah, like the
Yeah.
actual thing. So yeah, but obviously great play by Tyreek. And then yeah, it's just like I said, the last play I mentioned that with our average shows guys, like go back and watch the Mahomes to Kelsey pass to get in the field goal range. Like they have 3 down linemen, and then like the Bills have like a 4th defensive lineman like on the right side. That's like I don't know. It looked like even he didn't know what he was doing. I said it in live time. I was like, what? Like, first of all, why is he out there? You should be playing pre-vet defense. The rest 3 guys, like you mentioned, press on, and it's just little things like that. That I'm sure will haunt Doug McDermott and Leslie Frazier. I'm not sure who made that decision to have a 4th defensive lineman there. Like, you're probably not going to get to Mahomes at this point. You want to play coverage. You want him to sit there and pat the ball. You don't want him to, because let's say that 4th guy does get through. You don't want to get rid of it and then, have more time.
And like, didn't you say he didn't throw a pass over 20
He
yards in
didn't
the
throw a
whole
pass over
game?
20 yards the whole game.
So like, force him
Over
to
air
throw
yards.
something
Yeah,
short.
air
Yeah,
yards.
over air.
Sorry, but that's because how the Bills are playing. They're playing the shell coverage the whole game, and it's just when you have difference makers, they can break that open. So credit the Chiefs there. But yeah, I really felt for Josh Allen. I mean, making play after play after play. I mean, he was that's the word I was looking for, Joe. But he was under siege. I mean, so many. It was that 4th and 13. I remember at that point because I think they got a penalty that backed them up to 13, and then like they had some drops, and I was like, man, like just kick the. At that point, it was like 21-26. I was like, kick the field goal, get the stop, and then maybe get the field goal. You have enough time. Obviously, I was wrong because Allen hit that touchdown pass right afterwards. But who knows? Maybe that was the right choice. But yeah, it was a wild game. I know there's some criticism around Stephon Diggs, but he was doubled for most of the game. Like Kansas City, once again, game plan specific defenses. We're going to take away Stephon Diggs. And granted, Gabriel Davis had a very good game. But like we mentioned too, Dawson Knox didn't really do anything this game. Had some tough drops. And I think he was the one that had the false start too that got them back. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm usually on the opposite side. I'm like, listen, like, yeah, it's 3 phases. You got to have a good defense too. But yeah, obviously the rules need to be adjusted. Some people were saying let them play the full 15 minutes and whoever's, has more points at the end. But I don't think that's a good idea just because
I don't like a time limit on overtime
Well, and
because
then like
then you could run the
injuries,
clock.
I think injuries too like are a factor, and like these guys have to play another another playoff game next week. Like as a team, I
Yeah.
wouldn't want that. So yeah, I think something like the college rules, like you mentioned, both teams get the ball. Maybe I saw a proposal like the home team gets to decide who gets the ball. Maybe you have it so like if the first team scores a touchdown and an extra point, then the second team has to go for two, so that there's
I
some
think
finality to it.
there was some point that we talked about this. I can't remember if it was on the podcast. I think it
Probably
was
I don't remember.
where there was a proposal which I thought was incredibly interesting where one team would pick the yard line the ball starts on and the other team picks who gets the ball. And so the Chiefs, because they're home, they could say, we're going to put the ball on the 1 yard line. And now the Bills have to either choose to defend where they only have to go 1 yard or start on offense where they have to go 99 yards. And I thought that was potentially interesting. Once again, I don't have the answer, but there are proposals out there. And in that scenario, both teams would get the ball and they both get the option to do it. There are scenarios out there where we can make a better overtime than we currently have.
Yeah, and it's part of I think part of the issue is just like we mentioned with the refs, just the NFL is just I point the finger to the owners. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they aren't really doing anything to innovate the game. Like we still have old men that are also half of them are lawyers or whatever their part-time job is. Like they just do refereeing as a side gig. Old guys running around trying to spot the ball and figure out what these guys that are breaking their bodies
Yeah, can we get some
are,
young refs out there?
or like former players or even colleagues. Then like also like we mentioned we can't afford to pay like a sky judge or have like maybe some of these old guys sit somewhere where they have all these camera angles to see, or we can't put trackers in the
Yeah, where like
ball.
they review every play
Like
and then call in if it needs to
I
change.
may have mentioned before, like my girlfriend who does nothing about football. Like I think we're watching a game a couple weeks ago, and she's like, "Why don't they have a tracker on the ball?" Because like they're sitting there measuring with the chains, and she's like, "Why are these old people?" Like I was like, that's because that's how it is. Because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but they're cheap. So enough
Yeah,
around about
spotting is subjective. Then you got the
yeah.
chain gang that comes out. It's
Because
just
God forbid quarterback sneaks, you're just like it's kind of just like I think the pile like unless it's clear and obvious like where the pile moved. If it's like a stalemate, you're just like, oh man, like I like even I don't know. We have the better angle than they do.
there was
So
that QB sneak. I think it was against the Buccaneers. Man, I don't know who it was. It was a Cowboys game where the Dak QB snuck it, and from any of the angles, you couldn't see the ball.
yeah,
There was, and so they like you could see his body, and it looks like he scored, but you can't see the ball, so they can't rule it a touchdown.
yeah. So
Like a tracker fixes that. Anyway,
anyway, but yeah, I mean, I know there's like, oh, there's pylon cams. We should have had pylon cams a long time ago. Like you don't tell me the pylon cams are innovative. It's 2022. Like we got drones. We have. Don't tell me
also,
this stuff. So
like, come on, don't tell me that defensive players aren't sitting there and thinking I could just like step in front of the angle the pylon cam has.
yeah.
Because if it's a QB sneak and you're the guy on the outside, like I said on that Dak Prescott one, and I'm sure it's happened in many games. A guy kind of like just conveniently was there, and so you can't see the angle, and it helps the defense. So yeah, anyway,
Anyways, though, that was a really good game. And then in regards to Josh Allen, Mahomes, I'm not even sure. Once again, I said before going in, I probably put Allen 1, Mahomes 2. Still might do so, but I just want to note, like before our rankings, I'll probably mention in our rankings, those two are in a tier of their own. Like Rodgers
yeah,
maybe 3, or someone else maybe 3, but those two are in a class of their own, obviously, right now. So that would be fun. Yeah, like you mentioned, Brady Manning, this is like next level.
this is different because they can run, they can throw at 80
They're more
yards.
gifted
Like,
than both. Let's be honest. They're more like
yeah,
they're more gifted
yeah,
physically than both of them. So,
yeah.
anyways, that was Chiefs Bills. My stepdad and my mom were very happy. Obviously, when it happened, crazy game. Man, like I said, I feel for Josh Allen. It's tough to lose to a team like to give him literally your best shot the second time, and you
Yeah.
should have won, and you had no say. Like I said, as a Packer, I sent that that picture. Packer fans hugging Bills fans. We know the feeling when you got your stud quarterback on the sideline. He gets you back in the game, and there's nothing he can do. You lose. So we'll see what the Bills do changing going forward. Obviously, the Chiefs play the Bengals. We made those picks for the average shows, and we'll probably attach that as its own video so you can see that, its own podcast. I think we both picked Cincy to cover the spread
Both pick
anyway.
Pinsey to cover. Yeah.
So thank God. So that's that. Now we go
Can we pause
to
real quick? I gotta plug my computer and it's about to die.
yeah.